homeschoolers, it's me Jazz again from Hidden Library Homeschool. I'm back with another curriculum video, and I'm going to show you what my third grade son will be using for next year for the 2017-2018 school year for language arts. And I will say sorry for the glare. I can, see it in my glasses and all, but I'm recording at night, so there's no natural light, and I can't really find a good angle without a glare, so sorry. But I will be showing you what my son will be using for third grade for the rest of language arts. I already showed you what we're going to be doing for reading and also for handwriting. And with the rest of our language arts that I'm going to show you, you're going to see a big shift and a big change in what we were using from last year. Because my son is moving from lower elementary into upper elementary, the change in material was completely intentional. There are a couple of things that we are keeping the same. We do like All About Learning Press, so we are going to still be using All About Homophones. And we started this book last year, but this book has word lists for grades 1 through 8. So we'll be probably doing a couple of the sheets every year. There are games in the back. We don't really do too much of the games. I mostly just use this book to introduce some of the homophones, and then with our other language arts curriculum, we go more into depth of what the homophones are. So this has worksheets on to, which, things like that. And like on the back, I'll show you. There are some games that you can cut out some of these cards and things like that. But we're only going to be doing a couple of pages out of here in the beginning of the school year. We will also be doing All About Spelling. And this is level 3. My son has already done level 1 and 2. And since this is a level program, goes all the way up to level 7, we're going to continue with it unless it stops working, but it hasn't so far, so we're going to continue using it. It's set up just like all the other All About Spelling. They introduce whatever you're learning about that week, a suffix or a different spelling rule, and then there's some cards, some dictation in sentences, and this one actually has, at the end of the lessons, in this level, it starts out with writing station. And the kids, you give them a word, they're supposed to separate the suffix from the word, and then also write an original sentence with that. So we're going to be using All About Spelling level 3. We might get into level 4, but we'll see how we end up pacing ourselves with that. It comes with this student pack here, and it has different cards to, they're already perforated, so you just take these apart. And at the end of it, they do have a certificate they can give to the child when they've completed that level. I did notice that my son needed a little bit of extra spelling practice. He's not a natural speller. I'm not a natural speller, so I definitely wanted to make sure that he was encouraged but also required to spell a lot better than I was in school. When I was in school, the teachers pretty much were like, well, you're not a natural speller, so okay. And never really pushed anything else out of me. They didn't, really require anything else. But I do want him to catch on to these spelling rules. So I first picked out Spell Check by DK. And while this looks like a great, colorful workbook, it has lots of examples and everything. I don't know if you can see this, but this paper is pretty shiny. We've used some of the other DK workbooks. In first grade, we used the geography book. And while we liked the book and I liked, the content and everything in that, and my son did actually 2 of those books in first grade, the pages, it's just not user-friendly, the pages themselves. If you have to erase anything on this shiny paper, you end up with a big smudgy mess. So I think we might use this just as a reference, or maybe even over the summer instead. So instead of that, for spelling practice, we are going to be doing Spelling Skills by Harcourt Family Learning, grade 3. And I like the way that this one was set up. It has it already laid out in a way that makes it easy to plan out for the 36 weeks. They have 30 lessons, and then after 5 lessons, they have a review. And it is pretty colorful, just like the other one, but it also has other language art skills kind of put into it, proofreading and letters and things like that. So how to write letters and things like that. So I also liked that it has the words in cursive also, so practice in reading cursive. So there's lots of different examples. It's like right here, it's going to talk about nouns and things like that. So it does tie in things from the rest of language arts, some dictionary skills and things like that. In order to kind of fill in some of the gaps in the rest of our language arts program and just make sure we got everything covered, we will be also doing from Harcourt Family Learning Language Arts Grade 3. And what I liked about this book is, just like the other one, it is colorful, but not too much color that it's distracting. But it seems like it picks up very nicely where we left off with Voyages in English that we did for 1st and 2nd grade. It seems to be in the same sort of vibe that the other book had, but it is a little bit more condensed because it's just a workbook. And we're not using this as our main language arts at all. It's just to fill in any gaps that we have and to reinforce any of the topics and things that we're going over. So this goes over grammar, punctuation, vocabulary, writing skills, and research. For vocabulary, for our main vocabulary, last year we tried out vocabulary workshop and my son hated it. I was not a big fan of it. So we both, we're ready to ditch that and switch to something else. So we're going to try out, and I think it's Zahner Blozer. I think that's how you pronounce it, Word Wisdom. And the thing I noticed right off the bat with this one is the pages. They're pretty thin, which doesn't always work well with my son who, writes really hard and erases really hard. So I'm not sure how well the pages will work out for this, but I did like that, like the other ones, I want things with color, but not too much that it's distracting. So I do like the layout of this, but there are a lot of sheets in here, a lot of worksheets. So I don't think that we're going to be using this program exactly as it's laid out. We're probably not going to use every single sheet. I'm not going to try to drill this into him, to the point that he is dreading it or anything like that. But I probably will use this just to introduce some of these words, because with the rest of our language arts, with the rest of the reading that we're doing, you saw the other books that we have, he's going to have lots of words introduced to him throughout the rest of our curriculum. So I'm not very worried about him, gaining new vocabulary. But I do want something with a little bit of structure. Just makes, I think, me feel a little bit better to have that. So I will be using this. It did come with a teacher manual, and it's just the worksheets on there, smaller, and some teaching tips, and then of course the answers on the pages, so So we're gonna probably be using that, but in our own way and very lightly. For writing, in the beginning of the year, we are going to be reading You Wouldn't Want to Live Without Writing, and this is just like all the other You Wouldn't Want to Be books. It talks about writing and what we use writing for, the first types of writing, writing on tablets and different alphabets, how writing has changed over time, what people use writing for. Like here it's talking about, people use it for plays and thank you notes and all different types of things. So why writing is important and how writing has changed and how we're typing now. So we're going to probably just read that for our writing, just to ease into writing in the beginning of the year. For writing, our regular writing curriculum, I picked up Writing and Rhetoric, Book 1, Fable. This is the teacher's edition. This is the student book, and it also came with audio recordings. I haven't listened to these yet to see how it's to hear how it sounds, but I will check this out, because if it does have a nice voice to it, whoever is reading it, then we will probably be using this just to cut down on the things that I have to read out loud. So I was a little bit hesitant about this program. It is put out by Classical Academic Press, which I will link below, and you can look at the samples and whatnot for yourself. But it is put out by a Christian company, so I wasn't sure if there was going to be a lot of stuff in here that our family wouldn't really be able to use. But I do really like the layout of this. I like how it presents it, and I wanted something that was inspired by the classical education thing. Sorry, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I can't think straight. But I do like here that it has copywork, dictation. They're going over different, in this one, fables, and learning how to write based on them. There are 12 books that are going to be in this series, and it is for upper elementary all the way through middle school. So I was hesitant about it because it's from a Christian company, like I said before, and I was kind of going back and forth because they do use examples from everywhere, from absolutely everywhere. They have, you know, all throughout this program, I've looked at the other examples, and they have it on different works, different speeches, different myths, different everything. So it is pretty balanced on where they're taking excerpts from, but I wasn't sure how heavy they were going to be with Bible and if there was going to be things that our family would have to eliminate. So far, I haven't seen anything that I would feel that I had to eliminate or anything like that. But at the same time, when I was looking at the program, I do want my son to at least have a cultural understanding of the Bible, because, I mean, I hear things even on the news. I've heard, you know, them say things like, a Good Samaritan took a man to St. Luke's Hospital. So that, in it right there, that has so many references to the Bible. And I do want my son to actually to understand where those came from and to make those connections when he hears things like that. I can watch TV and, you know, someone says, oh, the prodigal son returns. You have to know where that came from. Or I've heard things, you know, even on TV or in books or just out and about. People saying things like, you know, pearls to swine, or someone thinks that they can walk on water, and all these are references to the Bible. Even if they're not using them in a religious way, I still want my son to understand where those come from. I was thinking too, like, we're going over American history now, and he needs to know that being called Benedict Arnold is an insult, but just the same as being called a Judas is an insult, and where that came from and why it's an insult and why the person might be calling them that thing. So I do want him to understand all of those references, not just the biblical references, but the references throughout all of the things that we pull from within our culture. And I do like that it does bring things from everywhere. So I'm hoping this works out for us because I love the layout of this. But we'll see. We'll go through this book. There's another book for the second semester. I don't know if we're going to go into it, but we'll see how this goes first. For grammar, I have been looking at Michael Clay Thompson for years, for literally years. I saw this probably when my son was like 2 or 3 years old. And I have been looking back at this website for every single year, just waiting until we would be able to use this. And I don't know what it is about it. I think it's just the illustrations, it's the font, it's just so user and kid friendly. And it seems simple yet thorough. And that is exactly what I want. I don't want grammar to seem like such a hard and, you know, topic that is something that the kids dread or anything like that. So I really just liked the way that this is laid out. It is not laid out in a way that has, you know, lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. You kind of have to go through it yourself and break that up however you want to do it, which it took me just a little bit of time to kind of look over the book and figure that out for myself, but I did. And we will be going over this book for the first 9 weeks of school. There are lots of other books in his language arts program, but it is pretty expensive. So I wasn't sure if I wanted to spend all of that money not knowing if we were going to like the program. So I just bought the teacher's manual for Grammar Island, and grammar is where you're supposed to start out in the beginning of the year with his language arts, so that's what we're going to do. I also only bought the teacher's manual because it has all of the same information. The only difference is they do have some of these question boxes that the teacher is supposed to ask, which doesn't really get in the way of the learning or anything like that. You can just go, oh, let's talk about this one right here. At the back of the book, there are some things for the kids to do that would be in the student book. Let's get a good example. So, for example, there might be a page like this, and the kid can answer that. I'm not sure how it's laid out in the student book. Like I said, I don't have it. But in this one, once you turn to the back of the page, there are the answers, but the kid can't see that if you're just showing them the front of the page. So if you wanted to do that as the kid pointing it, or if you wanted to copy it, which I think I'm just going to write it out myself in a notebook for him, and then have him do the work separately. But you can still do that with them even looking at the book without them actually seeing the answers, because the answers are on the back. I was kind of debating between this and a different writing program that was also by Classical Academic Press. They have the Well-Ordered Language, and I had them both up on the screen. I've been looking at this for years, but, you know, when another curriculum comes out, you kind of, oh, that looks shiny. So I had them both up on the screen, you know, side by side, and just going back and forth. And my son came into the room and he asked me, you know, what are you doing, Mom? I said, well, trying to decide between these two curriculums. So he saw one of the pictures in here and started reading the story in here. And he goes, well, I hope you pick that one. So I was like, oh, it's settled. We are going with the one that I have been longing for just forever. And I've heard some things about this, that if it is a program that you kind of look at and it speaks to you and your child, that it tends to work out really well. If you look at it and you're kind of confused, then it tends to not work out too well. So it was definitely something that spoke to me. So I'm hoping it works out pretty well. And if it does, we will be buying the rest of that curriculum, and I'll show that in videos to come if we end up buying it. The last thing that I have for language arts is also for grammar. So we're going to be doing Michael Clay Thompson in the beginning of the year, and probably more towards the last couple of weeks of the school year, we will be doing Grammarland. And this is Grammarland, a book for good boys and girls. And this is actually an older book. This book was actually put out originally in, 1877, but this is a reprint by Yesterday's Classics from 2009. What I really like about this book is I never thought I would be reading a grammar book where I would be laughing and thinking, well, that makes so much sense. I wish I would have been told it that way when I was 9, because that would have just clicked. So I was just looking through this book and laughing the whole time. My husband's like, what are you reading? I'm like, a grammar book. And he's looking at me like I'm crazy because I'm laughing during a grammar book. But the story of this book is each chapter is about a different part of speech, and they are all going in front of a judge and kind of claiming who owns which part of speech and telling why that part of speech is theirs. You know, Mr. Noun says, these are my words because they're a person, place, or thing, and every part of speech is saying the same thing, why each part of speech is there. Some of them are kind of squabbling with each other because they think each other are stealing each other's words. Like adjective and adverb are quarreling because he's saying, well, you're just putting "ly" at the end of my word and it's mine. But they have to prove that why each word belongs to each person. There are some things at the bottom of here that the judge at the end of a chapter gives to the people of Schoolroomshire. That is a long word, but that's the place that they are. Anyway, he gives this to them and tells them to look for that part of speech in that paragraph. So I have heard that people have made some worksheets that go along with this. We didn't get any of those. I'm sure you could find them on the internet, but we didn't choose to do any of those because we're only going to be using this book as review. So I think what I'm going to have him do is I might just type this up and have him actually look for those words that the judge is telling them to look for. So this is what we're going to be ending our year with grammar. If we add anything else, you'll probably see more videos of those to come throughout the year if we add anything else from, say, Michael Clay Thompson or anything. But this video is getting pretty long, so I'm going to end it right here. And thanks for checking this video out from Hidden Library Homeschool. Please like, comment, and subscribe below. Bye!